Well, I think there are three key benefits to cost transparency. Firstly, I think it's potentially maximising members' benefits. Secondly, I think it can help trustees and pension funds better assess value for money. And thirdly, it can help make more informed decision making and then better governance for the pension scheme. So a really good example is I'm a trustee for KAS Bank UK pension scheme. It's a DC trust scheme. And we carried out a comprehensive cost transparency exercise. And what that revealed to us was 23% of our investment costs were actually transaction costs. These are previously unreported costs. So how did that help us? Well, first of all, with this insight, it helped us make more informed decisions on behalf of our members. And then also, it gave us a better overview of the total cost of ownership, so we could actually better assess value for money on behalf of our members. Well, I think really importantly and firstly, it's going to improve engagement and trust within the pensions industry, and I think that's really important for our industry. But let's use the Dutch pension industry as a great example. So they've been collecting costs for the past 7 or 8 years. And in 2015, it became a regulatory obligation for them to collect their costs and report their costs to the regulator. So although this gave them better insight into this cost, they've also seen a drop in the investment costs per member by 20% over the past 3 years. That's an amazing figure. And then I think it's also allowed them to have a better overall insight into their overall cost of ownership and therefore better govern their pension schemes. So the total cost of ownership, we put it into 2 categories. Firstly, the pension management costs. So those are the costs associated with running the legal entity of the pension scheme. For example, your staff, your actuary, your auditor, your lawyers. These make up approximately 25% of costs of running the pension scheme. And then we have the investment costs. So your annual management charge charged by your asset manager, the performance fee you may pay them if they beat the benchmark, and the transaction costs. These make up roughly 75% of your total cost of ownership. Now, where there's been a lot of focus is on the investment costs and those previously unreported costs called transaction costs that have been more difficult to uncover. However, we still think it's important that you should still focus on your pension management costs, because we think when you're assessing value for money, you should assess value for money across all your suppliers. So transaction costs are important to understand because they can make up 25% of your investment costs, and they can actually make up to 20% of your total cost of ownership. These are the costs that have been typically unreported and have created much debate in the industry. So they're the costs that are attracted through transactions, so the buying, the selling, the borrowing and the lending of financial instruments. We typically put them into 2 categories, explicit and implicit. Explicit costs, examples are such as the broker research fees or transaction taxes. These are relatively easy to collect and analyse. However, the implicit costs are much more complex, and these are costs such as slippage costs. And the complexity here comes from the different methodologies for the calculation of these costs. What I would like to say here though, whilst we're talking about costs, that we mustn't look at costs in isolation, and I include transaction costs. We must look at the turnover, the strategy, and the returns generated on behalf of that fund. So cost transparency has actually been a hot topic and an area of much debate for many years. When the FCA undertook their asset management market study, one of the key remedies was to ensure that investors actually had clear and simple information on costs. However, one of the big challenges was there wasn't a standardised framework for collecting those costs from asset managers. So the FCA created a group called the Institutional Disclosure Working Group, the IDWG. And they were tasked with creating templates for the industry so that we could actually consistently collect costs across asset managers. They finished their work in the summer of 2018 and they produced 5 templates. The Cost Transparency Initiative, or the CTI group, were then formed through a partnership with the PLSA, the Investment Association and the LGPS. Their job is to now take these templates forward for the industry. Now they're busy testing those templates and they should be ready by Q2. What this will do is this will give pension funds an effective and a consistent methodology for collecting costs across all of their asset managers and suppliers so they can compare like for like. Now for DC pension schemes, they already have to report their costs and their chair statements. It's a regulatory obligation. We think this will become an obligation for DB pension schemes too. So I'm going to go back to what are the key benefits. So apart from ensuring or helping engagement and trust in the pensions industry, we will potentially maximise members' outcomes. It will help us better assess value for money. And thirdly, it helps actually more informed decision making and therefore better governance of our pension schemes. KAS Bank has been collecting, analysing and reporting costs to pension funds for over 7 years. We actually report costs on behalf of 50 pension schemes in the Netherlands to the regulator on an annual basis. And we're currently helping 10 UK pension schemes collect and analyse and report on their costs. We actually believe that education is fundamental to widespread adoption of cost transparency. And we have therefore developed a number of tools to actually assist trustees and pension funds with their understanding of cost transparency. If you'd like to know more, please contact us or visit our website for more information.